Anastasia's prosperity record won, noticing that the arranged time approached. Julius looked skyward. Julius, it's nearly time. I lose track of time every time I start working on documents. Removing his glasses, he gently pressed his tired eyes after a long period of looking at tiny letters. He always wore these glasses when he had to fulfill his duties as a noble, but when assuming his role as a knight, he took these off. That detail was part of Julius's philosophy, who believed he should keep his noble and knight's roles separated. Stranger, brother, the time to get ready has come. Some seconds after that, there was a knock on the office door, and a moderate voice was heard from the other side. Julius, I am finalizing everything here. Thank you for your reminder, Joshua. Joshua, put yourself in my shoes. You told me it was an important meeting for our house and consequently for the whole kingdom of Lugunica. It's natural for me to be worried. In response, a man of delicate features entered the room. His hair was styled in a ponytail and showed a gentle smile. His name was Joshua Juculius, Julius's brother, who was 4 years younger than him and one of his unconditional supporters. Even though he was physically weak and wasn't blessed with sword talent, he was a class apart when it came to smarts and had an easier time with studying compared to his older brother. Joshua. Brother, is something the problem? Julius. No, nothing, I was just spacing out. I'm all right. Joshua, good, then leave the job of cleaning this up to me and go change so you can meet your visitor. Julius. I could do that myself, but you're better than me at that, Joshua. Joshua. Haha, that's right. Most importantly of all, you should not keep a lady waiting. After that suggestion, Joshua winked at his brother, who was quite surprised with that gesture, despite the fact he was quite the upright gentleman, even if he ignored his familial bias. Julius, I was not expecting you to make that sort of joke, Joshua. Who did you learn it from? Joshua, who else could it be but yourself, brother? His immediate answer was another surprise to Julius, who, despite that, agreed with Joshua's assessment and started reflecting on his usual behavior around his brother. 2. Stranger, glad to meet ya. I am Anastasia Hoshin, the president of the Hoshin Trading Company. The one graciously laughing in the parlor was a girl who was apparently young and was not very tall. She had wavy purple hair, and she covered her body with a white cloth made out of animal fur. Her soft lips were always pursed in a smile, and her light blue seemed to calm down anyone who talked with her. Julius was not an exception to this, and was swallowed by her charm, and needed a moment to compose himself. Julius, the pleasure is mine. My name is Julius Juculius, heir of the Juculius house. Thank you for agreeing to meet me, Lady Anastasia. With his hand on his chest, Julius performed a knight's curtsy to Anastasia. Looking at that act of formality, the girl raised her eyebrows slightly. Anastasia, it's all right, let's not make this too formal. You sought me out, after all. I accepted the invasion because I felt both of us could get a lot out of this conversation. Julius, I am glad to hear it. Was there any issue during the trip? I attempted to take precautions for every possible problem, but if there was anything that caused you discomfort, please do not hesitate in telling me. Anastasia, nah, it was so peaceful that I have nothing to complain about. Quite the opposite. My only worry right now is that I may be hassling you too much, she said, with a shy smile on her face. Anastasia had a very noticeable accent, characteristic of the powerful country to the west, Kararagi, a federal city-state composed of many cities. The origin of that accent was deeply related to the country's own origin as well. The worry shown in the girl's face, however, was easily identified if one followed the direction of her gaze towards what was happening behind Julius's back. Stranger, woo-woo, you got a lot of expensive things, mister. It's all shiny. How cool, stranger. Mimi, calm down, don't touch other people's things. If that thing falls, stranger. Looky here, hetero, it's gold, I'm all golden. Hetero, SSS sistier. 2 little children had run into the room and were playing around in a corner. Neither of them was tall enough to reach Julius's waistline, and were aptly described as feline demihumans with orange fur, wearing a white overcoat. The way they spoke clued people into their relationship as brother and sister, but the girl kept touching and picking up every object in sight, leaving her brother exasperated at her behavior. Anastasia, I'm sorry for this mess, but she means no harm. I'd be happy if you were understandin'. Julius, I'm not as strict to the point of chastising children for being children, but may I inquire who are they? Anastasia, in theory, they're my bodyguards. They may not look like it, but they're pretty strong, you know. They're second fiddle only to my army's captain, who stayed behind with the merchants. Obviously, Anastasia's explanation surprised Julius, who looked again at the demi-human siblings. If they were indeed strong warriors belonging to a fighting force, despite their cute appearance, that would mean that they belonged to no other but Anastasia's renowned personal army. Julius. So, they both belong to the Iron Fang? Anastasia. Yes, and they're both vice-captains on top of that. In truth, they're triplets who work together, but the last remainin' one, who's a lot better at handlin' money, stayed behind as punishment. It was common knowledge that the Iron Fang mercenary army was the strongest of its kind in Kararagi, and it was at the exclusive service of the Hoshin Trading Company, and would step in to solve only the most extreme of conflicts. Anastasia, anyways, today is only meant to be a first meetin', so don't worry too much about them. I promise you I have no intention to start a fight. I actually want to keep a good relationship between us. Julius, I must still apologize for my lack of temperament. Even though I am a royal knight, I ended up having quite the exaggerated reaction at becoming aware they belong to such an elite army. Anastasia, you know, your reaction is actually rather refreshing, as many people don't believe it at all when they learn. Looking at Anastasia's calculating gaze, Julius was forcefully reminded of the girl he was facing. Despite her tender age, she already had quite the list of accomplishments, having already distinguished herself in the highly competitive commercial atmosphere of Kararagi. And now she had the wish to expand her business into Lugunica. Anastasia. All right, let's start this from zero. Currently, the kingdom of Lugunica is fast in an economic recession, and the public coffers have never been this dried out before, which is makin' it difficult for the ones in charge to manage the kingdom. Am I right? Julius had to put in quite some effort to maintain a composed and inexpressive face, as Anastasia did not hold back in picking her first topic. The subject of Lugunica's precarious financial situation was a critical matter. As such, it was information to which the majority of nobles were not privy to. Even those working for Lugunica's government were mostly unaware of this fact. Obviously, outsiders should not know that either. Anastasia, before you start looking for a culprit, I'll assure you no one revealed anything they shouldn't. 'Twas a conclusion I got from sightseeing in the city myself. Julius, sightseeing. Anastasia, negociatin' starts before getting to the table, by researchin' the subject I want to discuss. I assume you've also done your research on me, no? In my case, I like walkin', round with my own 2 feet and talkin' a good look with my own eyes. Appreciating the vague aroma of her tea, Anastasia divulged her philosophy as if it was a natural thing to do. Originally, this meeting with Anastasia had been proposed by Julius, who had set his eyes upon the Hoshin Trading Company, which was expanding very rapidly in Kararagi and had remarkable potential for expansion. He had thought that it would have been possible to bring it to Lugunica, so that it would help with its economic comeback. Now, it was purely Julius's responsibility to rein in the girl in front of him in a proper fashion, so that his wager would not come back to bite him. However, right now, it was Anastasia who was in total control of this meeting. Anastasia, to be honest, I'm not very interested in Lugunica as it is now. Even if my company expands to this country, we'll only be able to profit at the start of operations, and it won't last long. That is because, in only a short time, this kingdom's administration'll be in ruins, and I don't want to be investin' money and manpower knowin' that. She had no reserves in appraising Lugunica's current state harshly. However, as the heir of the Juculius family, Julius was perfectly aware of how her words rang true, and did not know how to reply, choosing to remain silent about her statement. However, Anastasia added, Anastasia, that Bane said, I see some potential in the Juculius house. Not only you, but from what I grasped, your brother is also quite capable, you know. Even if this kingdom's fated to fall, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it's a poor choice to keep a good relationship with your house in the long term. Julius, that was a very clear provocation. Even if he knew that, if Julius remained quiet, it was because Anastasia's words had the power to enchant his own heart. At that very moment, his voice, his gestures, his gaze, all these things were weapons that Anastasia could use in this negotiation. At that very moment, Julius was nothing but her opponent, an opponent she must defeat. For that reason, Julius, unfortunately, that will not be possible. The house of Juculius swore absolute loyalty to the kingdom of Lugunica, and it shall fall alongside the kingdom. That being said, I have no doubt whatsoever that its greatest goal is to work tirelessly so that the worst may not come to pass. Anastasia. With that confident statement, which left no room for doubt, it was Anastasia's turn to end up completely stunned. She knew she was going to be rejected, but not with such conviction. Her light blue eyes were open wide in a genuine expression of shock, which curiously made Julius think her more attractive compared to the times she acted in calculated fashion. Mimi, miss, look at this, miss, isn't this cool? This is so cool. Once the two sides had disclosed the first cards they held in their hands, everything pointed that the meeting would end up fruitless. Right at that time, the little demi-human girl came bursting into the conversation giggling like a madwoman. She then turned to Julius, smiling ear to ear, and asked Mimi, "Mister, is dis here yours? Why does it look like a lizard?" Julius, "This is not a lizard but a dragon. It is the symbol of our kingdom." Anastasia, Mimi, "Stop hasslin' Julius so much. See me here, gimme that." What the girl named Mimi held in her hand was an insignia with an embedded jewel in its center. That was an item of ultimate importance to the kingdom of Lugunica, and it should have been well kept, however. Julius, Lady Anastasia, I don't mean to be rude, but that insignia is an artifact of great value and… Anastasia, yes, I apologize, I'll give it back, of course. But hey, this is quite the beautiful glow, ain't it? The girl smiled faintly when she noticed that the jewel encrusted in the insignia glowed slightly, and looked at it as if she were hypnotized. Yet, more than anyone else present at that place, the one that was most stricken by shock was, obviously, Julius himself. After all, that glow could only meant one thing. He could only kneel as a reaction. Julius, Lady Anastasia, it seems that we need to have an even more important conversation. Anastasia closed her eyes after witnessing that sudden change in Julius's behavior, who, in turn, began thinking on the possible results of the events that had just occurred. The president of the Hoshin Trading Company, a foreigner, had reached the conclusion that Lugunica had no value whatsoever to her. But what if she had the chance to analyze the kingdom's workings from within? Would she keep the same opinion in not wanting to get involved with it? More than that, what would she do if she had the power to directly influence the kingdom's course? Julius. And if, by chance, she accepted to be a part of what the glow of the insignia implied, what would Julius himself choose?